You learn a lot from just finishing your book. A lot of people give up halfway through or really early. They never finish it. If you finish a story, you gain a lot of information, especially if you can set the story down and then come back and read it, like a week or two later. You'll start to see how the story came together and where you can improve it. It doesn't matter if it's perfect yet. You can make it perfect later. You should just finish it.
This is the LitRPG podcast, your one-stop shop for everything LitRPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi, and welcome to the LitRPG podcast, the only podcast that is 1 out of 2 in a full set. With me today is Shami Stovall, who has written a crap ton of stuff. So I don't even know where to start. Like First Chronicles, Half-Life Empire, which you should all read, Time Mark Warlock, and so on and so forth. So yeah, Shami, who are you?
You're right. My name is Shami Stovall. I used to be an attorney. Now I am an author. I also used to be a history professor. And if you go back even further, I used to work at a Blockbuster, right? So all the things. I did all the things. I love telling stories. I got started because I was a dungeon master for like D&D. And all my players basically were like, whoa, your stories and characters fucking blowing our minds. You should write books. And I did. My husband, super duper encouraging, super amazing. He supported me the entire way, emotionally and then later financially, because what happened is that being an attorney sucks. And I quit. Nobody goes to an attorney if they're having a good day. You know what I'm saying? So being an attorney totally blows. I quit and focused just on learning how to write a good book and how to write a good story. I went to many conferences, read tons of articles about writing, took it very seriously. And then when I started making a ton of money, my husband quit. And now he also is an author and no longer has to be a terrible attorney. So that's it. I don't know if that's an inspirational story, but it is a story.
Not saying that your husband was a terrible attorney, but that the job of the attorney is terrible.
Yes. My husband used to work in dependency, which is the law where they take children away from parents, usually because the parents were drug addicts or physically abusing the children in such a way that they need to be removed. So if you want to talk about a depressing branch of law, that's what he did. So it's really great that he got out of that, right?
Yeah, he became independent.
I find it a little funny because when I was younger, before I was 18, I grew up in a really bad situation. I was super poor and like lived in a car for a while, or we didn't have food, things like that. And it probably would have been appropriate for the government to take me away from my mother, but that never happened. So occasionally me and my husband talk about, hopefully one day we will adopt a child in need. But that's a thing in the future. But yeah, we have many connections. One of which is poor kids, because I used to be one and he used to help them. So
yeah, it was awesome. I found that many authors in the LitRPG community have adopted, especially if they're named Sean. Right? So,
does Sean Oswald have adopted children?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
and
know
Sean
that.
Wilson too. They have the same amount of kids and the same amount of them that are adopted. It's quite funny.
That's adorable.
I think, and they both write at the same speed. It is insane. They could be the same person, but they're not. Hopefully. But yeah.
Little do you know, they are the same person.
They're just like they're even more powerful than we all imagined. Like they're writing like double the speed. Yeah.
He has a pen name and it's just almost exactly the same as his real name. It's ingenious, actually.
Yeah. It's like no one will notice. They're never in the same room, so who knows? Okay, actually, before we get into talking about your books, I have one more question that you kind of cut into, and that is you spend a lot of time going to conferences and reading and learning how to write books. How long did that take you by your estimate?
I mean, I guess if you want to say since I first started trying to write, which was in law school, I would say it was 6 years. Um, I didn't seriously start like writing full time until like a year after being an attorney. But when I
Mhm.
was in law school, I went to these conferences. I wrote a couple books. You made a joke earlier about getting all the bad words out, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But I wrote several books that I've never published. I just really liked them, like they were
Mhm.
passion projects. And so I did those. They were fun. And then I started writing for real. I started taking it really seriously, really studying the three act structure. What makes a really good
Mhm.
character arc, what makes really good characters, what makes compelling dialogue, that kind of stuff. So, things that are kind of boring to just randomly talk about in conversation, but, I studied them pretty hardcore.
This is a writing podcast. You can let it all out.
Okay, yeah. We can talk about it for days then, man. You want
Yeah,
to, if you have certain questions, go ahead and hit me with them.
I that's what I'm doing. Now we have like this is like supposed to be like kind of like a balance, right? So like readers can get to know you better a little bit more, and authors can also get their fix of like what the fuck am I doing?
Hmm.
Because those sort of things interest me. Who are you as a person, and also what the fuck am I doing, and can you help me please? And I have about 67 of these recorded already, and I still need more.
Oh,
so
okay, yeah.
okay, so well, with that being said, let's talk about your books. So any book you want to talk about, why and how that book.
I guess I would start with the Frith Chronicles because I think I'm the most known for the Frith Chronicles. I pitch it as Pokemon meets Harry Potter. Um, I really, really, really like monster catching anything. Pokemon,
Mm.
Digimon, Monster Rancher, Azure
Oh.
Dreams. It's a pretty deep
Mm.
cut. But I I don't know why. I guess like there's no, I wasn't saved by a dog when I was younger and now I love animal companions. This is just a I have always really been fascinated by the idea. I think the Digimon anime was probably one of my
Mhm.
favorites when I was younger because it
Yeah.
was fun. You know what I'm saying? Like fun in
Mm.
a way that a lot of other shows were not. I guess it's an isekai in all seriousness because a bunch of
Mhm.
kids
Yeah.
get sucked into the digital world and now they got to survive all these fucked up monsters. And so that's
Mm.
really fun. Um, so when I was doing the Frith Chronicles, when I started with Nightmare Arcanist, I had an idea um, where the main character would bond with a nightmare, which is like an empty suit of armor made of shadows.
Mm.
And the nightmare would want to get revenge, like it had a goal to kill someone, and the someone it wants to kill is actually the main character's like hero, like the icon
Mhm.
that he's always looked up to. So, and that was a fun twist. I thought it was really awesome. I wanted a world in which if you have a favorite magical creature, it technically exists. So in the Frith Chronicles, whatever magical creature you could possibly imagine, it's somewhere in my universe. So if you like Yetis, that's your favorite magical creature. Don't worry, there's Yetis. You can bond to any magical creature, and depending on the creature you bond to, determines the type of magic you get, right? So if you bonded to a Yeti, you would have control over snow, or maybe you can evoke ice or manipulate the weather, or things like
Mm.
that. The main character is bonded to a nightmare. Like I said, it's like a shadow suit of armor. So he has like control over shadows. He can shadow step. He can evoke like terrors to frighten people, like fear effects, those types of things. One of his good buddies is bonded to a phoenix, so they've got like fire power and healing, like that kind of stuff. Super love all that kind of awesome bullshit, and there's lots of cool fights. There's technically an arcane plague that's running around that if a magical creature catches it, they turn into a monster. And I call them dread forms of certain creatures. So, if you had a normal unicorn, a dread form unicorn is like a super monstrous and powerful version of it. So that's also
It's a
fun.
shiny rare.
Yeah, well, I have true forms as well. So if you bond to a
Oh.
creature and you exemplify certain virtues or complete a
Mm.
certain task, they can transform into their true form, and then they're
Oh.
also ultra powerful. So you can see how Shami really likes Pokemon and Digimon. when I designed this entire thing. And I think my passion completely translates to the page. Like I said, I think it's my most popular series. People really, really like it. They really gravitate towards it. I've now, by the time this comes out, I guess I will have completed 2 Kickstarters for super special editions of the series. It's being turned into a comic book, like all this kind of stuff. So it's cuckoo choo. If we're not talking about the Frith Chronicles, I have decided that my author career is going to be on hard mode literally all the time because
Shout out to K novels, by the way.
Dude,
go ahead, finish. Please.
I don't think I write in the same genre twice, if that makes any sense. Like
nice.
when I got famous, it was for YA fantasy because the Frith Chronicles is YA fantasy, right? And then when I wrote my next book, it was like a sci-fi, and then when I wrote my next book, it was like a LitRPG, and then when I wrote my next book, it was an urban fantasy. Like, I'm never gonna. I mean, that's not true. I'll totally return to the same genre, but so far, I don't return back to the same genre, and so that's like a big no-no in the author community. They're like, you should pick a genre and you should just write in it forever. You should just write in. If I was a YA fantasy author, I should just only write YA fantasy, like that kind of thing. But I can't stop myself. I have these ideas for these stories and I just want to write them down and I'm going to do it. I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, author hard mode, activate.
Usually this is where I would ask, well, have you tried real hard mode? And that is, writing female-led sci-fi. But you have.
I don't have a female-led sci-fi. Even my Starmark Rising, which has who has the lady captain, she's not the main character. The main character is a dude.
Okay.
So I actually prefer to write male main characters. I have female main characters in some of my books, like my Ethereal Squadron, which is set in World War One.
Half-Life Empire is not sci-fi?
Oh, Half-Life Empire is, yeah. Okay, yeah. Kita is female. Sorry. I thought you were talking about Starmark.
No, I mean, yeah.
No. Kita is female. I guess that is the hard mode. She's like an engineer, right? Like more like a computer programmer, but she does a lot of stuff with her hands because it's kind of post-apocalyptic. It's like futuristic post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I think we gotta real quick untangle all the series that you do have in like quick one-liners because right. As you said, you write across many different genres, and I think it's important to me that people know.
All right,
what of yours is out there.
I have the Ethereal Squadron, which I guess is like Mulan for World War One. The premise is that there's magical sorcerers who fought in World War One. And they do secret tasks. Main character is a lady who pretends to be a man and joins the sorcerers. I have Starmark Rising. That's the mercenaries in space who are going to fuck up a whole bunch of people. And the captain really wants to be on par with the superhuman. I have the Frith Chronicles. Pokemon meets Harry Potter. I have the Nexus games, which is a LitRPG where the main character gets sucked into a death game world, basically, and has to compete in a series of games in order to win. All of the games are based off of very common video game quests. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty fun type of story. I have the Half-Life Empire, which is Fallout meets Aliens. Because I super love the Fallout games. I love things like Power Armor, that kind of bullshit. And then I have Time Marked Warlock, which is about a warlock who has made a bond with Kronos, so he can rewind time up to 24 hours. And he uses his rewind time in order to catch criminals and, be a private investigator, like that kind of thing. I think those are all my books that have been published. By series?
I
might have forgotten. I mean, the series all have multiple books in them. Technically, Astra Academy is a part of the Frith Chronicles. It's more of these Arcanist books. So,
Yeah, okay. I'm looking. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, that should be all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even
Technically,
know about Ethereal Squadron.
yeah, well, the Ethereal Squadron is another one of those where I think like 20 guys have ever read it.
Yeah.
I have a history degree and I really like World War One, so I was
Mm.
like, I'm gonna write a fantasy about World War One.
Have,
But nobody likes World War One, so
yeah, especially people who were in it. Have you read um, Rivers of London?
oh, the urban fantasy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I love that one too.
yeah.
And
That's good.
there were parts of it where they talk about like World War II and stuff like that, right? So
Well, World War
yeah.
Two is the popular war. Everybody likes World War Two. We want to talk about World
No,
War Two.
I'm German. I did not like World War II.
I mean, it's popular in the sense that people know about it. People know what
Yes.
happened. People really like some of the warfare techniques that were used. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah.
Whereas in World
Yeah.
War One, nobody likes the warfare
Because
tactics. You know
no
what I'm saying?
one won.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was a shit show. World War
Yeah.
One is like a complete embarrassment for everybody that was involved.
Yeah.
Like just horrific, terrible what was
Yeah.
happening here. That's why it's not popular. I like it because I felt like some of the military tactics were at least mildly interesting. And
Mm.
things like toxic gas being used in war is like the
Mm.
worst thing ever. And
Yeah.
that people trying to use like gases in trenches were very scary to me. In
Yeah.
my Ethereal Squadron books, I have like a magical gas that causes people to meld together or like
Mm.
melt and become monstrous.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah. This is exactly the kind of shit that someone should write when they're writing World War One like
Yeah,
fantasy
yeah,
horror stuff. Yeah.
it's definitely like a oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like like the tanks were basically just like armored cars with like a turret on top of them. Like no one knew what they
Yeah.
were doing. Like no one knew what they were doing.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, we got
Yeah.
planes now. Can we shoot people out of it? Probably.
Dude,
And
exactly.
and then they fly and they didn't synchronize the gunshots to the rotor, so that like they would shoot their own rotors off.
Oh
So
yes.
oh my god.
One of the things I put in the book because I thought it was funny is that a lot of the British officers who were used to, what they learned in their academy, and their
Mhm.
academy only taught them, shit from before World War One. They
Mhm.
always came out onto the battlefield wearing shiny hats and shiny
Yeah.
boots, and they'd be atop horses because,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
back, yeah. And so the German snipers would
Mhm.
just target them, shoot them dead immediately. Like
Yeah.
they'd be out there the first day and they would
Yeah.
die. And despite that, they still insisted on doing that for a while up until the death toll got so high that they had to stop.
Mhm.
But I wrote that in the first Ethereal Squadron book where the main character spots a British soldier, just a British officer getting shot immediately.
Mhm.
All that kind of stuff makes me laugh. World
Yeah.
War One is a shit show, just great.
Absolutely. Holy cow. And like, okay, those are all of your books kind of like outlined right there. Do you want to talk about Time Mark Warlock real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like what went into like designing it, what went into making it.
I really like the idea of people bonding with magical creatures.
Mhm.
Obviously, in the First Chronicles, we kind of had that. In Time Marked Warlock, warlocks can bond up to 5 different magical beings.
Mhm.
And then they can get their powers, and depending on where they bond them to, they can get different types of powers. So the main character is bonded with Kronos, um, and he can rewind time, but he's also bonded to an Ifrit, or an Ifrit, however you would like to pronounce that. So he also has super strong fire abilities, and that's specifically because he has a grudge with a bunch of witches, and witches are weak to fire, lol.
As one does.
Yeah. In the book, he bonds to a mischief spirit as well, and then gets
Mhm.
mischief abilities such as to avoid cameras and unlock doors.
Mhm.
Um, so I really like the magic system of like being able to mix and match, get different powers, make pacts with creatures based on the needs that you have. So he makes a
Mhm.
bond with the mischief spirit because he specifically needs to sneak around in buildings, and I really like that as a concept, right?
Mhm.
I really like urban fantasies, like along the lines of the Dresden Files or, Rivers of London. There was also the Iron Druid, which was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
right? So I like those types of stories. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of urban fantasy right now is more like paranormal romance, like where it's
Yeah.
a lady who,
Everything is
yeah,
paranormal romance right now.
yeah, everything is paranormal romance. So I was a little bummed out that everything is paranormal romance. So I decided to write, the stuff that I wanted to see.
And now they're coming for us. No,
Oh, they're coming for us. What do you
Ilona
mean?
Andrews is writing a LitRPG. They already finished, actually. They're going to get
Oh,
published next year. So,
okay.
yeah.
Awkward. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's going to work out for them.
See,
I
yeah,
I've
I was
read
talking.
I've read female romance that's
Mm,
targeted for female audiences. I
mm,
always feel a little weird
mm,
because I feel like I don't like them that much.
mm,
Like I see the tropes, I see what they're doing, I see the
mm.
character interactions because if you read enough of them, you start to see, the similarities, right? This comparative analysis. And it's not my jam, and I don't see a lot of lit RPG readers being like, "Man, I can't wait for this." um,
I could you see a lot of Ilona Andrews readers go like, "Oh shit, yeah, power fantasy," and then switch over to like, you know, Prime Hunter.
I thought that lit RPG, specifically different from game lit and all this other kind of stuff, is that there were
Mm,
numbers. There's a system and there's
mm,
numbers. Did
yeah.
she write a book with a system and numbers?
I don't know because I haven't read it yet, but like it's a couple, right? So Alana Andrews are like they're like husband and wife, and they write books together, basically. And you can always like kind of tell who's in the lead. So yeah. I mean, like I like them; they're good books. Like I was talking to Alex Gilbert about this like the other week, and we both really enjoy these kind of kick-ass women power fantasies. I mean, obviously because Journey of Black and Red, right? I read them a lot when I was like 25, 24, that sort of way, because I came via Harry Dresden, right? I came via Harry Dresden, and then I read all those first the really good ones, and then the kind of like okay ones. But I don't know. I like them. I like the urban fantasy books too, but also romantasy is also suddenly a big thing. Like Fourth Wing just like kind of made the entire thing super popular.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
basically my
see,
question.
I
Go
guess
ahead.
what I'm trying to say is that lit RPG involves those systems and numbers, and I
Yeah.
don't see a lot of fantasy readers being like, "Oh man, you know what? I can't wait to see in my book numbers." As a matter of fact, most people, normies, who have been like, "Here's a lit RPG," are like, "Dude, I don't want to read that. It's got like weird stats and shit in them, and my eyes
Really?
glaze over." So I assume that lit RPG will probably remain a mostly male dominated space because I think a lot of female, because let's just be frank, most people who read romance are women. Like there are some men, I'm not saying that there aren't, you know what I'm saying? And there are some women who read lit RPG. I'm not saying that there aren't, but the majority of the romance readers are women, and the majority of them don't want the like video game side of it, really, the gamer side of it. They don't mind the power fantasy. I don't know if you read a whole lot of like romantasy and stuff like that. I mean, even in Fourth Wing, the main character is like a bookish girl. They have to go bond with dragons. Everybody gets a cool dragon, but she gets two dragons because she's just that amazing, like that kind of thing. So even in romance, they're all power fantasies. They're all crazy wish fulfillment. She's just so awesome and special. She got two, so you can go fuck yourself. Um, it's not that they don't understand that. It's that they don't want the dragons to then have a leveling up system. You know what I'm saying? They don't want a system to be talking to them.
I get you. And I'm thinking about like Way of Kings, Brandon Sanderson's stuff, because
Yeah.
that's also a power like a progression fantasy, like it's just a very very slow one, right?
Dude,
Um,
but it's the same with Brandon Sanderson. He goes
yeah,
into a lot of the details and the magic. Even
yeah,
even the first chapter of The Way of Kings, not the pre-prologue, but the
Yeah.
actual, like, the one where the assassin kills the king. Okay,
Yeah.
that chapter is phenomenal, but
Yeah.
I liked it because it super details this
Yeah.
guy's magic. Okay, when he
Yeah.
tethers shit and changes, almost changes
Mhm.
gravity, but you know what I'm saying? Like, and then he fights the asshole who's wearing his
Mhm.
fucking armor, the king, and they
Mhm.
have a crazy duel, and it's mostly about describing how his magic works with this other guy's magic.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of stuff isn't found a whole bunch in romantasy and fantasy
Mhm.
because they don't give a shit
Mhm.
about that.
Mhm.
Okay. It's not like I've read tons, but I've read enough to know
Mhm.
what the vibes of whether or not it's popular. Have you read Fourth Wing?
Nope.
Oh,
But I've
okay. Yeah.
heard enough about it to know what it's about.
Okay. Well, then you knew she had bonded with two dragons, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you bond with a dragon, it gives you like a singular power, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what you get from the dragon.
Paltry.
But it is kind of in LitRPG terms. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
a lot about LitRPG is collecting powers and skills and powering them up or picking certain
Yeah.
paths. You know what
If
I'm
your
saying?
stat list isn't at least 3 pages, what are you even doing?
I don't know if you need it to be that crunchy, but a lot of people really like the what is it in the He Who Fights with Monsters, like the affinities combos. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that is really exciting, and a lot of people want to
Mm.
know what their affinity combo would be and stuff.
Yeah.
That is more complicated than Fourth Wing. Like
Yeah.
Fourth
Yeah.
Wing, and if we had to be a comparison, a sliding scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like barely any magic, no magic, bridge to Terabithia magic, and 10 is like the crunchiest lit RPG you've ever seen in your life. Like Fourth Wing is like a 3 or a 4.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
He Who Fights with Monsters is like a 7 or an 8.
Yeah. Jesus, where's like where does it put Defiance of the Fall? Like 11?
Well, I said 10 is the crunchiest of all lit RPGs you can
Yeah.
even think of. So, but that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to tell you is that
Yeah.
I feel like when you go into a romance, no matter what, when a romance is the number one genre, what you're there to
Mhm.
see is human drama.
Mhm.
You're there to see two people who might fall in love. Will they, won't they? Are they miscommunicating? Oh my God, there's
Mhm.
only one bed. Are they going to both sleep on it at the same time? But they're so hot. Are they going to make out? You just don't know. Like that kind of thing. And that isn't the number
Yes.
one concern in a lit RPG. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And this is how Harem was born, because it's like it's that, but also numerically the number goes up.
Well, in harem though, even I have you read a reverse harem, which is the version for women?
Uh like the love triangle stuff.
No, like a reverse harem where a woman has like
I
5
am
lovers.
intrigued. Go on.
Oh, you've never read one. You don't even
No.
know this is a genre. Okay.
I do know it's a genre that I thought I had like the wrong impression my entire life. You go ahead.
Yeah, no. In a male harem,
Mhm.
right? Like have you read Super Sales for Superheroes?
No, I've read
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
It's fine. In a male harem, what happens is like the main character, I mean, usually starts off kind of weak and then
Mhm.
gradually gets his power or gets his power a whole
Mhm.
bunch. And then he starts either saving women or collecting
Mhm.
kind of badass women, but then
Mhm.
helping them in some way or taking care of them.
Mhm.
And he collects them up. They've got different personalities. He loves them all. A lot of the male harems, then they have babies or they're making a
Mhm.
house or something like
Mhm.
that. Um,
Mhm.
they're deeply in love, and it's definitely more about I don't know, the man being a male protector and like
Mhm.
taking all these ladies in. When
Mhm.
you read a female reverse fantasy or reverse
Mhm.
harem, it's more about how the men want this woman so badly that they are
Mhm.
stopping themselves from raping her 24/7. I don't think I've ever read a reverse harem
Mhm.
in which the men weren't like fighting each other to be with this lady or sleep with her constantly or a lot of the really popular ones are like, and then she was kidnapped by the mob, and then the entire mob took turns having their way with her, but then they all
Right.
fall in love with her.
Yeah, because she's just that awesome. Yeah.
That's what
My
happens.
God.
That's
Yeah.
literally what happens. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like if that happened in a lit RPG, I mean, just think about it right now.
just a kidnapping part is like no,
Yeah, just
no.
imagine if that happened in a lit RPG. I could see the outrage from the community because it's kind of
Yeah.
preposterous and weird. You know what I'm saying? But it's very common in romance spheres. Um,
Like I hate success so much now. I want to write that, but in a good way. I
well,
kind
but
of want to see if I can make it work. I probably can't because I'm way too experienced. But still, go ahead.
but this is why romance is a completely different beast, and I
Mhm.
don't think that romance is gonna bust into lit RPG and be like, look at us, because I'm like, dude, there's just differences in romance than what you see in lit RPG, and I don't think they mesh well.
Yeah, I mean, like Ilona Andrews, like they are like kind of reverse harem-y ish. But I think, have you read any of them?
I don't think so.
Uh,
I didn't.
mm,
You could give me the title of a
mm.
book. I might know it more than
Yeah,
the
me.
authors.
I would mistake two of them because like one of them has something to do with tomatoes and the other one doesn't. Um,
I also don't. I guess I'm giving you all this information about romance. I don't really read it for pleasure. A lot of the time, I
mm,
read it for like research.
mm,
A lot of romance readers are really, really good technical writers,
yeah.
like really proficient at writing.
Mm,
Fourth Wing is written phenomenally well. Like the author of Fourth Wing,
mm, mm,
very good writing chapter one. Her chapter one is a 10 out of 10
mm,
masterclass. What your fucking opening chapter should be in a book.
mm,
Excellent. And I put it in the same tier as Brandon Sanderson's like
mm,
assassin fight with the king in Way of Kings.
mm,
Excellent opening chapter. So I've read romance writers because they take their writing really seriously. The problem
mm,
is that I do not like the content of the stories because I find the content of the stories to be too focused on human drama or things that I just
mm,
don't give a shit about. You know what I'm
mm.
saying? Like, huh, buddy?
Doggo.
Yeah, you're a good boy. Yeah, you
If you listen to this, there is now a dog.
are. Yeah, my cute little puppy came to sit with me, and he's a good boy, and he wants
Yes.
scritches. So
Can a team of has-been teen idols save the world? Find out in the new series Boy Bands and Dragons. When Neverboyland is sucked into a magical world, their reunion takes a back seat to staying alive. But if they can get over the past drama that drove them apart, they may find that even pop stars can be heroes. Come and discover your new favorite read. Our comeback tour is Slaying Monsters, the first in the Boy Bands and Dragons series by Kim Smuga Otto, dropping on Kindle Unlimited October 25th.
So Ilona Andrews wrote Magic Bites.
I don't think I've read that one, but I have read Love Bites.
Yeah, that's different. Like, there's this like they've written like Magic Bites, Clean Sweep, those sorts of books, and they're mostly. I think you might actually enjoy them not like as a. There's romance stuff in there, but it's more of like a real urban fantasy. So it's more of like in the vein of um, um, yeah, like Iron Druid maybe, or Harry Dresden kind of.
Okay.
I think you might enjoy them.
Is it more
Like,
like Patricia Briggs? You know, like the
I've
Mercy
heard that name
Thompson?
before, and I think doesn't she write like written in blood or written in red?
I was referring to the Mercy Thompson series. So like
Uh,
the Moon Called is the first book in the series, but
I think it's even less than that, like
no.
even less romantic than that. Like in Magic Bites, she does have like there's like a romance interest ish, and I think she has like two of them or whatever. But it's never really the main focus. The main focus is really about like her bloodline power and kind of like solving a crime and doing that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
it's good. I like that. Um, I definitely like crossed over into like the kind of like reverse harem territory when I was reading like magic. No, written in red. which is
Okay.
like weird oracle. And whenever like you cut an oracle and they bleed, they have like visions, right? Which is like very metaphorical, obviously. And only women can be oracles, and so they go insane after a while because they love the pleasure of this thing so much that they just do it all the time, right? It's yeah. And definitely there's like a scene there where like all the monsters out there like really love her. There's no rape, but every time something happens to her, the entire town's like in outrage. And I was like, this happened like 15 times in a row, and I'm no longer interested in doing this.
Well, when I said they get rapey, I don't actually mean that they rape the main character, although I guess that could happen in some books. I mean, like, their intense need to be with her borders on this is rape. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, they
Yeah.
can't control themselves. That's a very common theme. They can't control themselves. She's so sexy or whatever, you know, they're just so attracted to her that they
Yeah.
have a raging heart on constantly, and that's all they can think about, and, you know, like that kind of thing. And I feel
Yeah.
like at a certain level, it gets boring. I know that sounds too silly, but when you're 25 chapters deep and basically all that's happening is all these guys barely withholding themselves from being with her, and we've already had like 5 sex scenes, I'm like, okay, guys, can we literally do anything else? Like, literally, I would kill for like a bad guy to show up or anything else for us to focus on.
Yeah.
But I must be the weirdo because these books do sell like gangbusters. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
reverse harem is a huge genre. So many readers. So clearly I'm the one with the problem because a lot of people are having a good time with this.
I mean, maybe, or maybe just like it's a comfort food, right?
Yeah,
That's why
it's an
they are so
escapist
formulaic.
fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen. Period. Right? It's exactly the same. People are gonna hate me for this, but it's exactly the same sort of mental food as a shonen anime. All right, you know what's going to happen. You know that like Son Goku is gonna win the tournaments eventually, and if he's not, then he's gonna win the next one, right?
Android 17 will win it for him.
Yeah, like you know it's not even his final form. You know, like right? That's all shit. Like, and this is like I just finished listening to Cradle 7, so like yeah, tournament arc, yes, yeah. Right. But yeah, that being said, I do think that Ilona Andrews might be able to really write a good like lit RPG or progression fantasy in that sense, because it's not really romance that they do. It's female oriented power fantasies. So we'll see. And to be honest, like as every other man or like anyone who's interested in like dating women, I definitely think that it would be great if there were more women whom I could talk to about LitRPG. Right? So definitely. So in this case, like I don't think it's a necessarily bad thing, but we just got to stay a little bit more open, I guess.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to happen. Like, this was a
Good point.
prediction, not a telling you what I preferred, because I would prefer if more lady faces were into all of the hobbies I was into. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
And
Um,
it's such a cliche question, but I have to ask it. Like, what would be something that you think might make that happen?
might make women be more into LitRPG.
Yeah.
See, the actual hangup that I'm trying to tell you that I guess I've not adequately articulated is that I feel like a lot of women steer clear of things like leveling, numbers, hard crunch, or hard magic, because it is more. Then you start focusing on the magic. The harder it is, the more structure you have for it, the more you have to focus. If it was a soft magic system where, you know, everybody gets a magical power and this guy can run fast and that guy can fly, you don't have to think about it that often because it's a singular power. You know, you completely understand what it does in a singular sentence. Whereas in a lot of lit RPG, the fun comes from, okay, he leveled up. Now he can either increase his speed by 10% or he can get this combo power that synergizes with the thing he picked up a few levels back, or he could, save up his points to get a different type of boon. You know what I'm saying? Like, now we are ultra focusing on the magic. And what I'm telling you is that a lot of women don't want to focus on that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Now, again, this is not all women. Some women like LitRPG. I like LitRPG. I've played video games my whole life. You know what I'm saying? So when I see those types of things, like I played Dungeons and Dragons, when I see them in a book, they're not weird or foreign to me. And I like focusing on the magic. I like having a hard magic system. I like it when an author can cleverly write a system and powers, and the main character can use them in a really cunning or intelligent way. That gets me going every time. I love shonen anime. I want to see Goku fucking punch everybody. I want to see this guy's power over 9,000. But I know that a lot of women, I mean, mostly because I've hung out with them my whole life, don't like that. They want the story to focus on character interactions. And a lot of I have read so many LitRPGs where the main character is alone for like 80% of the book. You know what I'm saying? Except for the monsters that he's killing. And I know in my heart that women would hate that, or at least a lot of women.
Okay, so I guess like my question was more towards like, hey, is this like a nature or nurture thing, right? Is that something that like culturally has to change first before people are more interested in it? Because like I hang out with a lot of women who do love Dungeons and Dragons. I've dated several of them. I've dated several who don't. So like I definitely agree with you. It is definitely a thing that like is a taste. But I mean, like if you're looking at like Dimension 20 or even Critical Role, half the cast of women. Right.
But even in things like Critical Role, the focus is on all of the characters being crazy and whimsical and character interactions and all this other kind of stuff. Sure, they're playing D&D, and sure, there's, the dice rolling, and Matthew Mercer does a great job of, being the DM while also flowing with the story, right? But it is more about the characters.
Yeah.
They like to talk in character. They're all voice actors. You know what I'm saying? They're all voice acting their characters. They get really into their character. They do really silly things. They do crazy over the top stuff. Now, some LitRPGs do that. Yeah. And I think Dungeon Crawler Carl is kind of becoming really mainstream because it really focuses on characters and how the characters interact and how they're cool, and everybody loves Princess Donut, and they love it when Carl is nice to Princess Donut, and Princess Donut's racist towards dogs, and you know what I'm saying? Like these are funny character interactions that really resonate. I don't know if it's a nature versus nurture thing. I guess I would lean more towards it's this is entertainment, and people gravitate towards what they find entertaining. Okay, nobody comes into school and is like, okay, everybody better start playing video games over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like people gravitate towards whatever they find entertaining. I liked to play video games, but a lot of girls who I tried to get to play Mario Kart with me were like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Let's go to the mall. Like that kind of thing. And then we would go to the mall or something like that. And it's the same with reading. When you go to pick up a book, when you go to Amazon, nobody's holding a gun to your head and like, you better read this genre. No, you just get to pick whatever you find entertaining. And so a whole lot of women have just automatically picked the romance category, or not automatically. They themselves, of their own autonomy, chose romance and a book that focused on character interactions. So I just assume that is what they find entertaining because nobody's forcing them to read it. You know what I'm saying? Now, if LitRPG started super heavily focusing on romantic elements and dropped a bunch of the video game elements and dropped hard magic systems and dropped the system, is it even a LitRPG anymore?
Yeah.
I guess that's the logic I'm trying to say. That's all.
Yeah. No, completely true. I'm just like wondering if there is a way of doing that. But that's maybe for later.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is one of those things where I would need to mull it over a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I feel like trying to trick people into reading certain genres because we want them to read it is a little weird, because how many times do we try to get men to read women's literature? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It's weird. You know, and like men don't want to read women's lit. Most women don't want to read women's lit.
Yeah, maybe it's the same reason why harem and reverse harem storylines are completely different, right? Because there's a certain, like, when you were talking about it earlier. I'm not going to be out there going complete like evolutionist or whatever, but I think the way you described it immediately made me think of like certain like genetic predispositions, right? Because as a man, you want to have several women and you want to protect them and keep them all together in like the same place. But as a woman, you like genetically in the past, maybe, like, this is a thing, not preamble, like you might have been more interested in having a lot of people like very interested in you. But I think, to be honest, I haven't met a single man out there who didn't also like the idea of having lots of women interested in him and not being able to contain themselves either. But the thing is, like, that doesn't happen in reality ever. Like, there's no precedent for it, except for certain Berlin clubs, I guess. But still, like, I think it like, imagine you're writing a book, and it's like a guy comes into a room and he's, you know, like, he's kind of weak a little bit, but he's very charming, very smart, very competent in his own ways, and there's like a ton of kick-ass women and they all really want him, they can barely restrain themselves. There's something about that feels unrealistic, even if you're doing it as a wish fulfillment fantasy. It's really interesting. I don't know.
I think there's a slight difference too.
Mm-hmm.
In that, in the female reverse harem, the men are like physically, you know, on her. They hold her down. They hold her against the wall. They hold her, you know. Again, it has a very rapey vibe. I don't think I've ever read a male harem in which the man was powerless to stop the women from getting or being on him. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, they should write that.
Like, I don't know if that would be. I don't know if that'd be popular to have a guy who was so weak that the women had all of the power and control. I feel like that would not go over well.
I'm going to be like completely transparent here, and it is TMI for anyone. I'm very, very sorry, but I once dated a woman who was like 2 meters 10, so that's like 6'5", I think, right? And she could pin me against the wall. It was fucking hot. Like, she was also like really into CrossFit, so like that was hot. Like, I'm going to the first person to say it. Like, still, I don't know. They should write this.
Would you want to be powerless all the time, though? You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, and also in these romances, and you have to tell me this because I don't know, are the women powerless all the time? Do they have like no agency whatsoever?
It's not that they don't have agency. It's that all of their power comes usually, not always, but from the fact that they can control the men. I mean, usually through, you know, the fact that they want them so much. But there is a lot of the story in which the women, you know, they're captured by the mob. They were sold to the mob. I read several stories in which a lady was sold to the mob. That was the actual plot line. And she didn't have any agency then, but the whole point is to get them into these situations that, you know, now there's somebody's sex slave. Would a male story where the man was sold to somebody as a sex slave actually really be appealing to most men? Because that feels
most men absolutely not. Like, most men are terrified of losing power because that's what they've been taught makes them attractive.
Well, but so in LitRPG, it's all about like having a ton of power, having all the control, or maybe beating the system, or being extremely clever and smart. And that's really fun. I guess for me, I really like it because when I was younger, I'd already told you this, I grew up really, really poor. And my family, there's like a lot of drug addicts or people who, alcoholics. My brother's back in prison, you know what I'm saying? And I wanted to not be like them. So I did everything in my power not to be like them. I went to school, I got degrees, I have a great career, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, you know what I'm saying? And so I made my life better. And that's what I resonate with all of these progression fantasies and shonen animes and like lit RPGs and video games. I really like a character who pulls themselves out of darkness, that pulls themselves out of bad situations, that doesn't allow anybody to tell them what to fucking do, that is not a powerless boob. And in a lot of female romances, a lot of them, not all of them, there are some that are not like this, but I like 80% of them. The female is very powerless in a lot of situations, and that's what's considered hot at some level, because the men get, you know, very rapey and all this other kind of stuff, and it's like sexually exciting for the female. And I just don't see a lot of people who really like the opposite, like a guy who gets a ton of power, who builds his stuff up, who levels, being powerless to women. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be a very huge turnoff for people who like that style of storytelling.
I think you can make that work if it's like kryptonite, right? and then right, we can make this work. And like there's like a tournament arc, and like the last enemy is like a woman. He's like, oh god, I'm fucked, and then he has to power through. But like afterward, it doesn't work anymore. Any other woman could like tell him to like make a sandwich, and he does it. Right? That could be funny, right? It could be fun.
Mean, maybe, but this is one of those like, and then you're gonna walk a really tightrope.
Yeah.
For what?
For funsies, like where's the challenge? Now I'm gonna like. I'm not going to be here never having successfully written like any anga banga number, like right, and going like this is super easy, because it's not. It really is not. I have mad respect for people like and I mean this very positively, like people like Sean, for example, or people like Zogarth, Shurloon, all even First the Fire, like they can write this and make it super appealing over like really long ass times. I obviously have no interest in that, or can't, or both, or either. Like my mind just slips off like whenever I like go into this deep territory. But I like challenges. I really like challenging myself, because I think that I like making things complicated. Like this is why I would lose against your husband in one of those games. Because I would set up like this perfect engine that would come to like would come alive one turn before he wins the game, right, and then it would never kick off, right? So yeah, I don't know. Brings me to the second question of the podcast.
Yeah, damn, we got real deep into that first one. What's the next question?
That's what's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer? Thank you. I suppress a phrasing.
Best advice I got as a writer. Oh, just finish it. You learn a lot from just finishing your book. A lot of people give up halfway through or really early. They never finish it. If you finish a story, you gain a lot of information. You learn a lot from, especially if you can set the story down and then come back and read it, you know, like a week or two later, you'll start to see how the story came together and where you can improve it. Definitely the best advice is to just finish the book. It doesn't matter if it's perfect yet. You can make it perfect later. You should just finish it.
Yeah, and just setting it down part is really important. I want to add to that and say the moment you know when the time is right for you to like start editing is when you look at it and you can see the flaws in a detached, logical way. Where it's not like, oh, I'm shit at this, I need to do this better. But when you're like, this has a bit of length here, and that is a bit too long, and what can I do? Like, how many beats do I actually have here, and how can I put them together? That's the moment you want. And finish stuff. Like, really do finish stuff. Yeah. All right. How have you learned that the hard way, or have you learned that like as you go?
Oh, no. I finished a book pretty early. I I mean, it was long. It was like 250k words. It was not a short, story,
Yeah.
but I finished
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay. It's one of those books that you have in your trunk still, right?
Yeah. I still have it.
Okay. Good. Because I did that too, and I published it on Royal Road.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's okay. Like that's why where the meme comes from, right? People were like, "Oh, Matt is gonna like rewrite Torchbearer like 50 times." Like, yeah, that's how people have been writing books for like decades. And I'm leaning into it too. But I still feel as though I could learn more. So I'm gonna keep writing the series, and then at the end, gonna see if maybe I can salvage it and sell it. But probably not. We'll see. Cool. Okay. Thank you for the very, very succinct and like quick answer here.
Yeah, we got through that one. We did it.
Yeah.
Wham bam. Thank you,
Snap,
ma'am.
snap, snap. Next one, I think allows us to be a bit more open. I think is what's one thing that you learned while writing that changed the way you write, or have you learned anything in the last book that you will now do differently? That sort of stuff.
What have I learned while I've been writing? I guess one of the things I learned is paragraph length. Before I used to have extremely long paragraphs, like when I first was writing, and I did a lot of research. And even while I was writing, if you read your stuff aloud, you can kind of feel this flow when something is going on too long. So I have definitely shortened down a lot of my paragraphs. I've made them succinct, or, used a lot of brevity so that I can get my thoughts across in less words, to be more concise. We don't want to waste people's time here. And if you have really nice, compact paragraphs when you're writing, some people, like speed readers, sometimes they just read like the first sentence and the last sentence of a paragraph before, just continuing on, like that kind of speed reading. You don't want them to miss a ton of information. And I feel like my writing has very much improved since I realized that.
Yeah. I sometimes find myself also doing that. Like when I'm getting tired, I just like skim and like, hey, no. I want to read all the details. This is good. But yeah. Okay. Anything else that you've learned?
I feel like I would then start to get into like really, really specific, like technical writing things. It's better to write dialogue where you don't need dialogue tags. So if your characters have enough personality that you can know who is talking based on the types of words they would use or the types of things they would say, you have a stronger character then. I know a lot of writers like to use different types of dialogue tags, like he shouted, he muttered, he whispered, he murmured, you know what I'm saying? He exclaimed.
Snape ejaculated.
We're just going to keep circling back around to harem somehow. You don't need to do those if the dialogue is written really, really well, because you can tell how they're supposed to be said. But this is really difficult and kind of almost very specific. You know what I'm saying? Like, that takes a lot of thought to really know the character enough to know what kind of language they would use and how to effectively make it so that you don't have to constantly be using tags.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, that's something that I've been working on for this next book, because I really wanted to cut down on the dialogue tags, and I do feel as though my characters are strong enough, and I still just like tagged it on there like as a matter of course. Of course. So definitely, it makes everything read. It feels more professional. I don't know, like because there's less of interruption in the reading structure.
Yeah,
it just kind of feels more natural. Very good. Okay. What's one book that you love, and why is it awesome?
Just one book, just random, any book.
Yeah.
I really liked Island of the Blue Dolphins when I was younger. It is a book about a girl. She's like a native on an island, and a ship comes by and takes everybody from her village off the island, except for her and her brother. So they are stranded on an island, living alone. Her brother is then killed by the wild dogs on the island, so then she is left all alone. And so she has to learn how to fend for herself, and she makes her own house. She ends up taking in some of the dogs, like the puppies, and then training and raising them, and they become like her best friends. She's on the island for many years by herself until more people come to the island on boats. It blew my mind as a kid. I thought it was really, really interesting, everything that happened to her on the island. I had not even considered in my tiny, shammy child brain a life in which I would need to, fend for myself and build all these things. Again, I really resonate with characters that pick themselves up by the bootstraps and get things done. And Karana, the main character of the book, even though she's alone, even though she has nothing, makes herself a house and makes herself a life, and I admire characters like that. So I like that. I guess as an adult, my favorite book is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, which is a science fiction book. But it is like super heavy on philosophy and like human nature and what you're supposed to be as humans and how we should live and what is a more, I don't know, empathetic life, right? I really like the character Jubal Hershaw. He appears in a lot of Robert Heinlein books. He is an attorney. I think Jubal Hershaw is one of the reasons I went to law school, because I really liked that character and thought he was so cool. I like Stranger in a Strange Land because I feel like a lot of the philosophical things discussed in it are interesting. I don't see a lot of books that discuss it. Now, I think it was written in the 60s or the 70s, and it totally feels like a book written in the 60s or 70s. I don't even think it's like a book that I would be like, whoa, it's totally great right now. Like it's more about the underpinning of the philosophy, not so much the science, like the technology that Robert Heinlein thinks that we'll have in the future. Because the main character, Nick, has like psychic powers and stuff like that. And that was super common in sci-fi from the 60s and 70s. Everybody's got psychic powers, and that's not really a thing, sci-fi doesn't have that so much anymore, but yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, also like fantasy has changed in the from the 60s and 70s. Like today it's basically every fantasy is like Tolkien, right? Like, or Tolkien-esque. Like even
not if you
Brando.
read LitRPG.
True. Then it's all Dungeons and Dragons. No, I'm kidding. But like some of the world building, or like a little bit of Patchett in there too, right? But in the 60s and 70s, you had like fantasy books where people just like walk through like weird random portals and end up in a world that like is made of purple shapes floating in the air and bubbles that talk, because like someone like had like a really, really great acid trip and really wanted to write about it, right? So like that sort of shit doesn't really exist all that much anymore today, because acid is really hard to get by, I guess. I don't know. I've never taken any. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, that being said, shoutouts.
I guess I would love to shout out my husband, John Stovall. I love him. He's my soulmate. He has helped me in a ton of ways. He is my biggest fan, my emotional support rock. I can't imagine being without him, like that kind of thing. He is a great author. He wrote Demon Card Enforcer that just recently came out. He really loves like Magic the Gathering and card games, and it 100% shows in the system he wrote for Demon Card Enforcer. He really loved making the cards, making them how they work. I really liked Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day. This might be embarrassing. I don't know. I've said it on a lot of podcasts, so I feel like if anybody listens to these, they already know. But I have watched every season of Yu-Gi-Oh!, including the stupid ones, like where they're riding motorcycles and playing board games. So I really like Yu-Gi-Oh! And I told John when he was writing this book or designing the system, the thing I hate about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that the fucking main characters never get involved in anything, like the characters playing the card games. Their monsters can hurt them because they get fucked up by the monsters all the time. But they never fuck up the monster. They never do anything to the monsters. They're just passive people on the sideline, and that always irritated me. So John came up with the system that they're called mantle cards, and the mantles can attach to the player in the card game. And I loved that. I thought that was great. It was inspired.
Yes.
So yeah, if there's anybody I would ever want to shout out, it's always my husband.
Cool.
I love that guy.
You should marry him. Oh wait.
What are you, gay, Shami? You gay for your husband? I am.
Yeah, man. Shami likes men.
Yeah, I do.
Oh man. Okay. Well, on that uplifting note, unless you have other shoutouts.
Oh, I mean, there's tons of people who are just great. Ryan Tang is the guy he's the co-author of Mimic and Me. He really loves Mimic and Me, but he's also co-authored my Crown Tournament books, which are just in my Arcanist series. Ryan is amazing. Super talented, very upbeat, very optimistic. He's writing a lot of comedy books because he's a really great, like, he has a comedy book coming out. It feels like a Terry Pratchett type of like writing style, which is really hard to mimic. So I really impressed by that. My writers group, every Monday I meet up with them and we exchange chapters and we talk about writing and how to improve our writing and all that other kind of stuff. So everybody in my writers group, but that's like 9 people. They all know who they are. If they're listening to this podcast, they know they're amazing. Finger guns to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, those guys are awesome.
Yes.
My agent, Drew, is really nice. He's really great.
I know the guy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Do you? Really anybody who's ever helped me out or given me a shout out or left a review, if they're randomly listening to this podcast, they have also really helped me and I appreciate them. All of my Patreons, those guys are great. High fives to all them. You know what I'm saying? I probably could go on for a long ass time. We should probably cut me off now.
45 seconds is the Oscar time, I've learned. Okay. Well, Shami, thank you so much for being here. We're going to keep talking a little bit more after the show in the bonus material that you can find on Patreon. I got an hour of bonus material for each and every author that I haven't had on the show after the 5th episode. And if you're interested in that, you can just check it out. So it's like more than 60 hours of bonus material talking about everything.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And like at least an hour. Some people have like even 2 or 3 or 4 hours, which is also awesome. Anyway, Shami, any last words before we cut it off?
Don't do drugs.
Yeah, literally, just don't do drugs.
Winners don't use drugs. Come on, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and or watching. And I'll see you next time. And if you're on Patreon, the show goes on.